Amazing moment, CEO discovers janitor speaks 9 languages. What happens next will change everything. It was just another ordinary evening in the swanky high-rise, where the lobby gleamed under the bright fluorescent lights. David, a dedicated janitor with decades of dreams barely dusted off, mopped the floor, the calming rhythm a stark contrast to the chaos of the corporate world above. He had traded his small-town life for this concrete jungle with hopes of crafting a bright future for his daughter, Emily. As a single father, he wore the weight of responsibility on his shoulders daily. Every shift was a reminder of his sacrifices, yet he found solace in Emily's bright eyes that sparkled with dreams of becoming a bilingual translator. But tonight felt different. David wiped the sweat from his brow, lost in thought, when suddenly, muffled voices drifted from the boardroom. Curiosity piqued, he edged closer, the polished floor reflecting the tense expressions of men and women clad in suits. The air was thick with anxiety as the ambitious new CEO, Sarah, struggled to connect with an important international client. Panic flashed in her eyes as she fumbled with outdated language guides, her frustration palpable. David, heart racing, sensed something in him yearning to leap out at that moment. In a rush of instinct, he took a step forward. "Excuse me," he interrupted, surprising the famished executives. "I can help." His voice echoed through the room, knocking the tension down a notch. With a flick of his wrist, he began translating 9 languages with an ease that had his audience gasping. The executives exchanged glances and whispers, their jaws nearly hitting the floor. In that instant, a janitor became the bridge between 2 worlds, transforming the atmosphere into something electric, and then, it unraveled. Instead of applause, there was a flood of whispers. Should they really recognize his talents? Was this brilliance just a freak occurrence? The voices twisted and turned, debating opportunity against tradition. David lingered in their collective consciousness, a symbol of everything unseen. As he stood, pride swelling and trepidation dancing in his gut, he felt the eyes of the board on him, some filled with admiration, some with disbelief. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The room throbbed with uncertainty as Sarah faced mounting pressure from the board. Class and opportunity were being thrown into the fire, the flames flickering around David's newfound purpose. He could feel hope scrambling to emerge, tangled with the stark realization that he might just slip back to being invisible once more. As the company edged closer to a decision that could change their lives, David, engulfed in tangled emotions, stood at a crossroads. Moments after that breakthrough, he found himself caught in a whirlwind of confrontation. Sarah, recalling her own humble beginnings, questioned whether the corporate values truly honored talent born from hardship. The community erupted in support of David, shouting from the hallways, demanding recognition for the silent struggles, echoing his hidden fight. With everything hanging in the balance, David prepared to stand his ground, heart pounding, nerves swirling, ready to reclaim his dignity. The stakes had never been higher. What would happen when the unspoken truths simmered to the surface? Would they finally recognize the worth behind the mop? The air buzzed with anticipation, leaving both him and Emily teetering on the edge of a moment that could forever alter the course of their lives. The murmurs coiled around the boardroom like a creeping vine, tightening their grip with each passing second. David felt his heart beat louder, almost drowning out the sound of the executives' whispers. He had stepped into that room, full of determination, but now uncertainty surged through him. "David!" Sarah called out, her voice breaking through the tension. She locked eyes with him, seeking reassurance in his presence. "You've just changed the game. But can you really handle this?" It was an unspoken challenge, a gateway to new possibilities for them both. "Yes. I can," he said, a surge of conviction filling his chest. With each word, he pushed back the fear that threatened to swallow him whole. The board members glanced at each other, some visibly intrigued, others still wrapped in skepticism. The very air around them crackled with the tension of a game-changing moment, and Sarah knew it. "Look," she said, turning to her board. "David is not just a janitor. He is proof that real talent can emerge from anywhere. Isn't this what innovation is about? Embracing the unknown?" Her voice soared above the low whir of doubt. As she spoke, David could almost hear the gears turning in their minds. Some nodded, while others remained locked in worry. Would they really accept this truth? Can we trust this? We've always played it safe, one older member hesitated, eyes flickering skeptically at David. What's the risk? Sarah pressed. If we don't take a stand for talent, we'll be left behind. David could not only help us break language barriers, he can also bring a fresh perspective that could propel us forward. The words hung heavy in the air, and David felt the world narrow down to a single point: his chance. Why should I be limited by my title? David finally said, raising his voice just slightly, allowing the clarity of his words to pierce the tension. I worked hard to learn those languages. I've lived experiences that add value, and I see things through a different lens. Isn't that exactly what we need in a world that's constantly changing? His heart raced as the murmurs shifted to contemplation, and for the first time, the expressions he faced weren't filled solely with doubt. There was intrigue, curiosity, even respect beginning to bloom amidst the uncertainty. Communicating isn't just about words, David continued, the weight of his life's struggles fueling his passion. It's about connection. People want to feel understood, valued, seen. I can be their voice. With that, he glanced toward the exit. Emily's face in his mind. Her laughter, her dreams, her future. He wanted it all for her, and he couldn't let this falter. Not now. Outside the boardroom door, a small crowd had gathered, employees whispering excitedly. David could hear snippets of encouragement filtering through the walls. He deserves this, one voice chimed. Give him a chance. Another urged, but just as hope began flickering in the boardroom, doubt clawed back. What if he fails? An executive countered. What if this is a risky move that costs us? They were back to their old ways of thinking, and David felt a knot rise in his throat. In that pivotal moment, Sarah took a step forward. We've faced risks before. Think of what's at stake. If we don't embrace this opportunity to grow and innovate, we will be lost. David could sense that they were teetering on the brink of a decision that could alter everything, not just for him, but for the entire company. As the murmurs gained volume, Sarah looked back at him. Her expression mirrored an understanding they both shared: this was bigger than just one man's recognition. But then, just as the words were about to tumble from the board chair's lips, the room fell silent, leaving everyone buzzing with uncertainty. What would she say next? Would David emerge from this crowded space as more than just the nameless janitor, or would he retreat back into the shadows? The air thickened with anticipation, and David's heart raced at the precipice of change. The CEO, a tall figure with a commanding presence, leaned forward. The room held its breath. Let us not forget, she began, her voice steady yet deliberate, that every success in this company has come from risk-taking. David, I appreciate your passion. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle. However, this isn't just about talent, it's about execution. And you, unfortunately, lack experience in this field. David's heart sank. He felt as if the floor had dropped beneath him. Years of hard work, countless nights studying, and yet, even in this moment, he was judged by the title he held, not by his skill or vision. What did she know about him? About what he could do? All he could do was respond. Experience can be learned, he said, gathering every ounce of courage he had left. What I possess is something you can't teach: understanding people, cultures, emotions. That perspective is more important than years spent behind a desk. Another board member raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite the previous skepticism. But will your vision translate into results? That's what the shareholders want to hear. David took a step closer. I believe that if we focus on the stories behind the languages, the human experiences, we can build bridges, not just between different cultures but within our own company. Imagine launching a campaign that resonates because it speaks directly to people's hearts. The room was silent again, but now it was a silence filled with thought. David could feel their interest peaking, yet he sensed lingering doubt. Could he really back up his bold claims? Before he could ponder further, Sarah interjected. What if we conducted a pilot? Let David lead a small project. We can observe the results firsthand. If it fails, we've lost nothing. But if it succeeds, but if he fails, the voice of doubt returned, it could harm our reputation. What's at stake is significant. Or we could be left behind, Sarah countered passionately. We're living in a world that demands diversity and innovation. David might just be the spark we need. David bit back his frustration. Why was it always about the fear of failure? He had faced rejection and disappointment countless times. This moment was about rise, not retreat. His eyes darted to Sarah, a plea for support woven into his gaze. Allow me to prove that I can lead us forward, he said, his voice unwavering. Give me this chance, and I promise I won't let you down. The murmurs resumed, charged with a new energy. David's heart raced from a cocktail of fear and hope. After what felt like an eternity, the CEO leaned back in her chair, deep in thought. Finally, she turned to the board. We need to consider David's proposal seriously. A trial run could show us whether he truly has something valuable to offer. He deserves that chance, don't you think? The board members exchanged glances, a mixture of hesitation and acceptance. Let us vote, someone finally suggested. As hands rose, David held his breath, locking onto each approving gesture. Would they embrace this shift? Could he step out into the light he so desperately sought? As he glanced toward Sarah, she nodded, a soft smile of encouragement brightening her face. The decision hung in the air, crackling with potential. If they said yes. David could feel the gears of change starting to turn, yet the uncertainty draped around him like a heavy cloak. Would he truly rise to the occasion? But with the board convening in whispered discussions, another thought struck him. What if, even if they did accept, the path ahead proved to be far more complex than he imagined? And just like that, he felt the walls closing in again, each word and glance feeling like a weight on his shoulders. Would he be able to transform this moment into something meaningful? The room fell silent once more, anticipation hanging thick as the board members prepared to reveal their verdict. David's heart raced, every second stretching out into infinity. Would they believe in him? The murmurs quieted, and all eyes settled on the CEO as she cleared her throat. David's heart thudded like a hammer in his chest. He could hardly breathe, his mind racing. Had he made his case effectively? Would they see what he saw? The results are in, she announced, her voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. A majority believes we should move forward with David's proposal. We're going to give him a chance, but under one condition. David felt every nerve in his body alert. What's that? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. You'll have 3 months. During this time, you must present measurable outcomes. If you can't deliver results that justify this direction, we may need to reevaluate not just the project, but your role here. The pressure mounted, a tidal wave of expectation washing over him. He met Sarah's gaze, her expression a mix of pride and concern. It was as if they shared an unspoken pact. She believed in him, and now he had to deliver. Absolutely, he replied, trying to sound confident. Thank you for this opportunity. I won't let you down. With a few final remarks, the meeting veered toward other topics, but David barely heard anything. He felt as if he were walking on air. He had been given a chance, now all he had to do was climb the mountain of doubt and uncertainty that loomed ahead. When the meeting adjourned, David's feet found the floor again, and he turned to see Sarah making her way toward him. "You did it!" she exclaimed, beaming. "I knew you could turn things around. Thanks to your support." "I can't believe they actually agreed to a trial run," David said, a mix of disbelief and relief flooding through him. "But remember, this is just the beginning," Sarah cautioned, her smile softening into focus. "You'll need a solid strategy." "What's your plan?" David's mind whirred like a blender. "I've got ideas, but I need a team. People who share my vision." As they discussed potential approaches, a thought crossed David's mind. Could he bring in more voices, more stories? Would that strengthen his idea? He knew he'd have to seek talent, people not just skilled, but passionate. Later that day, back at his desk, a flurry of excitement began to build. He reached for his notebook, scribbling down ideas, names, and potential strategies. There was so much to do. The fear nagged at him. What if he couldn't pull it off? What if the doubt came slinking back in? Suddenly, he remembered a chance encounter he'd had a few weeks earlier. While grabbing coffee from the break room, he had met the janitor, Mr. Ramirez, who had casually mentioned his ability to speak 9 languages. The thought of Mr. Ramirez lit up a flicker of inspiration inside David. He needed a fresh perspective and a touch of diversity to his plans. Maybe, just maybe, that man with a humble heart and vast experience could share insights that would turn everything upside down. With newfound determination, David rushed out of his office, making his way back toward the janitorial closet. The halls buzzed with the sounds of a bustling company, but all he could hear was the beating of hope in his chest. He reached the pair of swinging doors, took a deep breath, and pushed through. Would Mr. Ramirez embrace the challenge? Could he see the value in helping a project that could reshape everything? As David scanned the room, the sharpness of his vision began to crystallize. This was the opportunity he'd been craving, not just for himself, but for everyone around him, but there was still a gnawing doubt. Would he be able to convince the man who usually blended into the background to take such a leap with him? Would Mr. Ramirez even want to be a part of something bigger? With each step he took, the question loomed larger. Could he forge a connection that would empower not just his dream, but the dreams of others? As he turned the corner, anticipation bubbled inside him, ready for this new adventure to begin. What would happen next? David pushed open the door and stepped into the dimly lit janitorial closet. The room smelled faintly of lemon and bleach, a quick reminder of the hard work that often went unnoticed. Mr. Ramirez was there, tidying up with surprising grace. A mop rested against the wall, and a bucket sat nearby, half filled with soapy water. "Hey, Mr. Ramirez," David said, his voice brightened by a spark of hope. The man turned, a warm smile breaking across his weathered face. "Ah, David. Good to see you. What brings you here?" he replied, wiping his hands on his worn-out uniform. "I wanted to ask you something. Can we talk?" David fidgeted, a knot tightening in his stomach. He could feel the stakes rising with every passing second. "Of course, son. What's on your mind?" Mr. Ramirez leaned on his mop, giving David his full attention. David took a breath, steadying himself. "You remember when we talked about your languages? I've been given the chance to lead a new project. I believe it could create a real impact for our company, but I need a team that sees the value in diverse perspectives. I think your view and experience could be a game changer." Mr. Ramirez raised an eyebrow, curiosity etched into his expression. "You want me to join your project?" "Yes. I know you don't think of yourself in that way, but hear me out." David's enthusiasm bubbled up. "Having someone with your knowledge and background could help us reach so many more people. Your understanding could transform this vision into something truly inclusive." The janitor straightened, scratching his chin thoughtfully. I've never really thought of myself as being part of something big. I just do my job and go home. Exactly. David responded, his heart racing with urgency. But your experience can provide insights that no one else here has. I believe we could create something that changes lives. Mr. Ramirez took a step closer, the gravity of David's words sinking in. And what if it doesn't work? What if I fail? David opened his mouth to answer but found himself silently reflecting on the weight of that question. Failure is part of the journey, he finally said. But I promise you, even if we do stumble, we'll learn together. You won't be standing alone. For a moment, silence enveloped them, thick with possibility. David could see the wheels turning in Mr. Ramirez's mind. Would he take the leap? I appreciate you asking me, Mr. Ramirez said, his voice barely above a whisper. But I'm just a janitor. What can I really contribute? I've learned that everyone has something to offer, David said, determined. It's not about titles, it's about passion and perspective. And you've got both. Mr. Ramirez's eyes softened, a flicker of hope igniting within. All right, David. I'll give it a shot. I'll help however I can. A wave of relief washed over David. Thank you. Together, we can do something special. As they spoke about ideas and strategies, an air of camaraderie began to build. Each passing moment made David feel more certain about the path ahead. He began planning specific tasks and roles, his excitement infectious. Mr. Ramirez even began to share thoughts on connecting with the diverse needs of their clientele, but as they wrapped up their conversation, a thought struck David like a bolt of lightning. This is just the first step. With uncertainty creeping back, he hesitated. What have I done? Suddenly, in this newly forged partnership, David sensed the daunting reality again. It wasn't just about improving himself anymore, now he had someone else's future resting on his shoulders too. As he left the janitorial closet, his heart raced with hope and fear. What challenges awaited them as they dove deeper into this new adventure? And would their passion truly be enough to push through the pressures of the upcoming deadline? The thrill of possibility mingled with doubt. It felt like a roller coaster ride. Would their combined efforts lead to success? Or would the weight of the company's expectations threaten to crush them both? David's heart thumped in his chest as he moved away from the janitorial closet. The thrill of their conversation hung like a heavy mist, filled with uncharted possibilities. Could Mr. Ramirez really add a new dimension to the project? The sway of doubt tugged at him. He picked up his pace, weaving through the halls, his mind racing through every moment of the conversation. What if he had misjudged the situation? What if he had pushed Mr. Ramirez too hard? David took a deep breath and calmed himself. This is going to work, he thought, steeling his resolve. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, illuminating the white walls and the dull gray flooring as he made his way to the conference room, where his team was already gathered. They looked up as he entered, their expressions a mix of curiosity and excitement. Hey, David. What is going on? Asked Lisa, the project manager, leaning back in her chair, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. We need to talk, he said, trying to contain his excitement while finding the right words. I think I've found the missing piece for our project. An undercurrent of intrigue swept through the room. David's team leaned in, eager for details. What do you mean? Asked Brian, a skeptical but quick-witted colleague. Did you expand our budget or find a magical shortcut? David chuckled, shaking his head. No, it's better than that. I just spoke with Mr. Ramirez, the janitor. Brian raised an eyebrow. The janitor? Yes, he's a fascinating guy. He speaks 9 languages. Imagine the insights he could bring. David's eyes sparkled with conviction. A moment of silence fell over the group, then whispered laughter erupted around the table. You plan to invite him to our project meeting? What can he possibly contribute? Lisa teased, but David could see the gears beginning to turn in her mind. Think about it. His knowledge and perspective could help us understand the needs of our international clients better. We can't afford to overlook that. David's voice rose with passion. Plus, his unique experiences with people from different cultures could guide our marketing strategies. Slowly, the laughter dimmed, replaced by thoughtful nods. You might be onto something, David, Lisa finally said, her tone shifting. If he's willing to share, it could give us a genuine edge. David felt a rush of gratitude wash over him as the team started discussing how to involve Mr. Ramirez, proposing ideas and brainstorming potential roles for him. Previously hesitant, their obstacles now seemed surmountable. As talks unfolded, David's mind briefly flicked back to Mr. Ramirez. Would he even feel comfortable in a room filled with corporate professionals? I still think you're crazy, Brian chimed in, jolting him back to reality. But crazy can be good sometimes. David smiled, reassured. They continued debating possibilities, and the energy in the room evolved into something alive and vibrant. But then, just as David felt the momentum building, a sharply indrawn breath caught his attention. It was no longer the playful banter he had enjoyed moments ago. Lisa's expression had shifted once more, and fear crept into her voice. Wait. What if he doesn't want to participate? What if he feels like he doesn't belong? The room fell silent again, this time with gravity. Every eye slowly turned toward David, and all he could think of was Mr. Ramirez's quiet voice echoing in his mind. The words rang true. He had always been just a janitor, and would he still feel worthy? David couldn't shake that anxiety rippling through him. I'll have a conversation with him, he said, though uncertainty gnawed at his insides. I will make sure he knows he is more than just a janitor. The meeting wrapped up with plans to reach out to Mr. Ramirez. As everyone filtered out, a mix of enthusiasm and apprehension lingered in the air. David was left standing alone, pondering the suddenly heavy burden he had embraced. Would he be able to prove the naysayers wrong? Could he really change not just the project but Mr. Ramirez's life too? The rising tide of fear and hope washed over him. Like a storm. Did he have the strength to lead not only himself but someone else into uncharted waters? Would Mr. Ramirez embrace the opportunity he was being offered, or would doubts and insecurities hold him back? David stepped out of the conference room, the buzz of conversation fading behind him. His heart raced, half excited and half terrified. How would he even approach Mr. Ramirez? Would the janitor be open to this unexpected proposition? There was a chill in the air, but it didn't dampen David's determination that he knew he had to find Mr. Ramirez. Maybe he was still in the break room, sipping coffee during his brief respite. The thought of seeking him out sent an odd mix of thrill and anxiety coursing through him. What if the man refused? What if he turned tail and ran from the idea, feeling unworthy? Yet, David couldn't shake the feeling that this was a chance not just for the project but for Mr. Ramirez to step into a world he had perhaps never considered before. As David moved through the building, he recalled moments when he had brushed past Mr. Ramirez, the polite nods exchanged, the fleeting conversations as he pointed out where supplies were kept. Nothing could have prepared David for the connection he felt in their earlier chat, the passion and knowledge behind those gentle eyes. He pushed open the door to the break room and leaned against the doorframe. The room had a comforting aroma of coffee and the faint buzz of the microwave. There he was, Mr. Ramirez, sitting alone at a table, his graying hair catching the light in a halo. A familiar smile greeted David, one that was warm yet tinged with curiosity. "Hey there, Mr. Ramirez. Do you have a minute?" David asked, stepping inside. "Of course, David. Everything all right?" Mr. Ramirez looked concerned, setting down his cup. David took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. "I wanted to talk to you about something important. Our project team, we're looking for fresh perspectives, and I think you could really help us." Mr. Ramirez raised an eyebrow, a hint of disbelief creeping in. "How could I, David? I'm just a janitor." The sting of those words, a quiet dismissal of his worth, plucked at David's heartstrings. "You're so much more than that," David insisted. "You speak 9 languages. You have life experiences that we desperately need. Your perspective could change everything." Silence enveloped them as Mr. Ramirez searched David's eyes. For a moment, doubt shadowed his face. "But I wouldn't know where to start. I've always just kept the place clean." "Think about all the people you meet every day," David pressed gently. "Their cultures, their stories. You have an understanding of the world that we don't. I don't want you to think of this as being just a part of a project. It's a chance to share your voice." Mr. Ramirez's gaze dropped to his hands, the fight surrounding his doubts evident in the crease of his brow. "What if they don't see me as I am? What if all those voices are drowned out by the louder ones?" David felt his own heart squeeze. "What if you could help us understand those voices better?" He paused, letting the question hang in the air, heavy with possibility. "What if you could inspire change? Not just for us but for yourself?" The janitor slowly lifted his head, allowing hope to creep in where fear had taken root. I don't know if I could." "You can," David said, stepping closer, feeling urgency bubble up in him. "You'll never know unless you try. Let's give it a shot together. Something could really change here, not just for our work, but maybe even for you." A small silence stretched between them. David watched Mr. Ramirez's expression morph into a mix of contemplation and excitement. There was so much untapped potential in that man. "Okay," Mr. Ramirez finally breathed, the corners of his mouth turning upward ever so slightly. "I'll try. Just, don't expect too much." David's heart swelled, a rush of relief washing over him. "That's all I'm asking. One step at a time." As they stood there, a new path ahead, both aware that not just the project, but the journey of their lives was about to shift. But even as hope danced in the air, doubt still lingered like a shadow. Could Mr. Ramirez truly embrace the role that awaited him? David couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something monumental. Would they be ready to face the challenges that lay ahead together? With the door of possibility cracked open, David felt the weight of potential gather around them, throbbing with every unanswered question. What if they discovered something inside Mr. Ramirez that could change not just their project, but their understanding of the world? David and Mr. Ramirez stood in the break room, the air thick with unspoken words and possibilities. For a suspended moment, they both recognized the gravity of the journey they were about to embark on. Mr. Ramirez leaned back in his chair, his fingers drumming lightly against the table, a heartbeat of hesitance before the leap into the unknown. "I appreciate this, David," he said, his voice steadying. "But what if it doesn't work out? What if I'm just not good enough?" David shook his head, determination firm in his eyes. "You won't know until you try. It's not about perfection, it's about sharing your story. There's value in that." Courage flickered in Mr. Ramirez's demeanor, but the ghost of doubt still lingered. "I don't want to overstep. This is your world, corporate meetings, strategies, big ideas. I clean it, I don't create it." "And who says you can't?" David asked, his voice rising with conviction. He stepped closer, lowering his tone almost conspiratorially. "Imagine if your perspective opened eyes that had been closed for too long. You have experiences that matter, lives you've touched. That has weight." Mr. Ramirez's expression began to shift, like the sun breaking through clouds. Uncertainty began fading, replaced by a faint spark of interest. "Maybe I could share some stories. But would they really listen? Why wouldn't they?" David replied, the challenge evident in his tone. "You have a voice, Mr. Ramirez. You just need to believe it." The tension in the room leaned toward optimism, and for the first time, Mr. Ramirez seemed to see a version of himself that was more than a title. "You know, I've always loved telling stories about the places I've been, the people I've met. I suppose it never crossed my mind that they could be useful here in this setting. David smiled, feeling the air shift. That's what we need, that slice of humanity you bring. Let us brainstorm. We can prepare something for the next meeting. Just practice sharing. All right, Mr. Ramirez nodded cautiously, but the glimmer in his eyes indicated a growing excitement. For the first time, I actually want to try. Exactly. David said, enthusiasm bubbling up. Together we can lay the groundwork. Maybe even involve others. I know staff would love to hear from you. The realization of a team effort sparked a fire in Mr. Ramirez's heart. You really think the team would welcome me? Absolutely. They might see you in a whole new light, David assured him, his voice bright. What can we do to make it happen? Mr. Ramirez took a deep breath, the weight of possibility settling on his shoulders like a warm blanket. We can start with my experiences, and perhaps weave in some cultural lessons with the languages I know. They exchanged ideas, laughter intertwining with words, the walls of the break room closing in with an energy that was more profound than either anticipated. Each thought shared built their growing connection, the budding of vendor and creator, teacher and student. However, as their dialogue flourished, a nagging voice in David's mind shared its concerns. What if their plan was met with resistance? How could they ensure everyone would listen? As they prepared to finalize their thoughts, the break room door swung open, revealing Jenny, a project manager. She looked surprised to find the two of them deep in conversation. What is going on here? David and Mr. Ramirez exchanged a nervous glance, both aware that their plan was fragile. Would Jenny widen that door of opportunity or shut it tight? We were just. David fumbled, knowing they had a choice to make, to share their budding idea or keep it tucked away for now. With hesitation yet a newfound strength, Mr. Ramirez cleared his throat, resolutely standing taller. We were discussing how stories and experiences from everyone can add real depth to our project. The moment hung in the air, both anxiety and anticipation swirling. Would Jenny's next words build them up or pull them back down? The weight of uncertainty settled once again, but for the first time, Mr. Ramirez was ready to face it. Would his voice truly change everything? Jenny's eyebrows shot up in surprise, a hesitant smile trailing across her face. Stories, huh? Like, what kind? Mr. Ramirez felt a rush of warmth flood his chest. It was as if an unseen weight had lifted slightly off his shoulders. This was at the moment they decrossed from whispers to promises. He turned to David, who smiled back, quietly encouraging him to go on. I've traveled a lot, he began, his voice trembling ever so slightly. I've met countless people, learned their languages, their customs. I think these experiences could inspire the team. Jenny's curiosity piqued, even a hint of excitement darting in her eyes. I'd love to hear more. What do you have in mind? Encouraged, David chimed in. We were thinking of introducing personal stories at the start of meetings. Something to connect us all, you know? Jenny leaned against the counter, arms crossed. I like that idea. It breaks the formality, lets us relate as people first. Mr. Ramirez felt the thrill of a spark igniting within him. He could hardly believe the doors starting to swing open. I could share a tale about the first family I worked for, he suggested. The things they taught me about kindness despite their circumstances, it was beautiful. That's powerful, Jenny said, nodding enthusiastically. Into the mix, we could even incorporate the languages you know. Presenting a story with a sprinkle of culture, bringing everyone together through humor and shared humanity. David's eyes lit up. Exactly. Think about it, the team could hear not just facts but real human experiences. That could change the way we all see our work. Mr. Ramirez's heart raced as their thoughts soared. Perhaps his stories could bridge gaps, create ties that weren't there before. He had spent years in the shadows, but perhaps he was ready to step into the light. I'll start practicing, he responded, hope swirling boldly in his voice. I want to show them the heart of what has been set aside. Count on me for support, David said, his enthusiasm infectious. I'll help you draft your first story, polish it. We can do this together. Their eyes met, a boundless energy circling around them as they exchanged smiles. For the first time, Mr. Ramirez felt like he had allies in a world he thought was closed off from him. Was it possible they could reshape the corporate landscape right in front of them? We'll need everyone's support, though, Jenny added cautiously, a degree of seriousness settling over the moment. What if there are folks who don't buy into this? Resistance could be tough. Mr. Ramirez's excitement trembled for a second, the flicker of doubt creeping in once again. He nodded, remembering how easily fear could eclipse determination. I know that's a possibility, but I want to try. Even if one person listens, it matters. That's the spirit. David exclaimed, determination sparking in his gaze. And I'll be there every step of the way standing beside you. Your voice deserves to be heard. The moment hung suspended, an unspoken bond forming as hope mingled with uncertainty. The thought of sharing his experiences in front of others would mean facing a vulnerability he'd never embraced. As they gathered their things to leave the break room, a newfound purpose sealed within them, Mr. Ramirez paused at the door. What if sharing my story makes things worse? The concern slipped from his mouth like a whisper. Jenny placed a firm hand on his arm. Then we'll face that together. Everyone deserves a chance to be heard. In that moment, something shifted in Mr. Ramirez. Could a simple story be a catalyst for change? His heart raced at the thought. Would this new path lead to transformation not just for him but for everyone? With David and Jenny beside him, he stepped into the world beyond the break room, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. But as they walked away, a lingering question danced in his mind: was he truly willing to bare his soul for all to see? In the weeks that followed, David and Mr. Ramirez dove headfirst into their project, transforming the shadows of doubt into vibrant tapestries of hope. They worked tirelessly, crafting stories that melded personal experiences with cultural insights. Mr. Ramirez shared tales of his youth, of journeys to distant lands, of people whose kindness taught him lessons of resilience. Each narrative fired the team's imagination and sparked discussions that ran deep into the evening hours. Word began to spread throughout the company. Colleagues would gather in the break room, sharing snippets of Mr. Ramirez's stories, and the newfound energy crackled like a live wire. Excitement mixed with nervousness as the team prepared for their first major presentation, a chance to showcase their work to the board. Days before the meeting, David caught Mr. Ramirez in the hallway. The janitor's hands trembled slightly as he straightened a stack of supplies, his brows were furrowed with anxiety. What if I bomb? He blurted out, the fear spilling forth unbidden. David placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You won T. You have stories that resonate, experiences that matter. Just stand tall and speak from your heart. You are not just a janitor. You are a bridge. The word seemed to trudge through the doubts that hung around them, battling to ignite hope. The morning of the presentation arrived, draped in an air of electricity. The boardroom buzzed with executives focused, tense, and whispering among themselves. David could see their raised brows and narrowed eyes as they exchanged glances. When their moment came, David and Mr. Ramirez stepped into the room. David's heart raced, but he was buoyed by the quiet strength radiating from his companion. We're ready for this, he insisted silently as he nodded at Mr. Ramirez. Good morning, everyone, David began, his voice steady. Excitement laced his tone. Today, we want to introduce you to something unique, something that could reshape not only our company but how we engage with our community. He stepped aside, nodding toward Mr. Ramirez, who took a deep breath, scanning the faces in the room. Noting their curious expressions, he felt the rush of energy wash over him, underpinned by the support of David. I'm going to share a story about a family I used to work for, he said, his voice stronger than before. Each night, they gathered around the dinner table, sharing laughs and meals, but it wasn't always easy for them. Different languages, cultures, it could have divided them. As he spoke, David witnessed a transformation. Mr. Ramirez's voice grew confident, resonating with a sincerity that made the board lean in closer. The room felt alive. Instead of letting those differences build walls, they built bridges. Their love for one another outweighed their struggles. That's what we want to replicate within our company. The room was engulfed in a palpable silence. The board members listened, captivated by the emotional pull of his words. As Mr. Ramirez concluded, David sensed an openness in the air, like the first light of dawn breaking the night. Together, we can create campaigns that connect people through their stories, celebrating our diversity as a strength rather than a hurdle, he said, eyes gleaming with optimism. When the room erupted in applause, it was exhilarating. The board members exchanged impressed glances, their skepticism had morphed into interested conversation. Sarah, the CEO, rose to her feet, beaming with pride. Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Your willingness to share your story has brought something incredibly valuable to our company. It reaffirms what I believe, that true innovation comes from recognizing talent, irrespective of how it appears. In that moment, the walls of doubt crumbled further. Mr. Ramirez's shoulders relaxed for the first time, eyes glistening with pride. David had believed in him, and now others were beginning to believe, too. As they left the boardroom, the team buzzed with excitement, the atmosphere charged as if they had just created magic. We did it, David said, clapping Mr. Ramirez on the back. Exhilarated by their success, the janitor turned, wide-eyed and grinning. I never knew I had it in me. Then just imagine what's next, David replied, grinning just as widely. This is the start, not only for our project but for our lives. Days turned to weeks, and the project flourished. Mr. Ramirez became a regular part of meetings, sharing insights and inspiring his team with every new story. Stripped of fear, he was no longer the janitor who faded into the background, but a cherished team member, a true catalyst for connection. David watched with pride as Mr. Ramirez transformed before their eyes. He witnessed the dawning realization in his friend that his past experiences had power, capable of shaping others in ways he never imagined. This journey wasn't just about proving capabilities to a board, it was about a father empowering another father, a connection that shattered preconceived notions and fostered community. As they wrapped up the pilot project, David turned to Mr. Ramirez. You broke boundaries, my friend. You're more than a voice, you're a force. With gratitude coloring his voice, Mr. Ramirez replied, and I couldn't have done it without you. You saw something in me I didn't see. If their journey taught them anything, it was that every story mattered, every voice mattered. In a city that could sometimes feel cold and unyielding, they had ignited warmth, understanding, and authentic connections. Now standing side by side, David and Mr. Ramirez understood that the transformation was beginning not just for themselves, but for a larger community poised to embrace change, and, simply put, the world wasn't ready for the rise of unseen talent, they were just getting started. So, if you felt inspired by this journey of courage, purpose, and connection, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for more incredible stories. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Remember, your like feeds the algorithm, so hit that button now and comment below your reactions and feelings about this story. The impact of your support is undeniable.